Hello, and thanks for joining us for Prepped and Polished, Education and Inspiration. I'm your host, Alexis Avila. I'm an educator. I'm an online entrepreneur and a founder of tutoring and test prep firm Prepped and Polished, broadcasting today from South Natick, Massachusetts. Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration is your destination for groundbreaking insight from today's most influential educators, leaders, and minds on the planet. Our show is brought to you today by Wilsey Connections. My friend Pam Wilsey is a therapist for moms and their teens and rolled out a program for graduating seniors called Freshman 2.0, College Bound, to help ease the transition to college. Check out wilseyconnections.com for more info. 2 L's on Wilsey. And get to know the Prepped and Polished community. You can find us on Facebook, as well as on Twitter at Prep Polished. And thank you to everyone for tuning in today. Joining our show today is the educational team, Evan Forster and David Thomas. Evan Forster and David Thomas are founders of educational consulting firm Forster Thomas, Inc., based in New York City. Evan Forster received his BS in speech from Northwestern University and MFAs in Screenwriting and Film Production from UCLA. And David Thomas received his BA in Asian Studies in Japanese from UTexas Austin and has an MSJ in magazine publishing from Northwestern. Forster and Thomas are world-renowned admissions experts. They're radio hosts and authors. In 2008, Evan founded Essay Busters, which helps underprivileged teens tackle the college admissions process. And today, Evan and David are going to share with us the exemplary work they do, both working with students at a busy admissions firm as well as the inspiring service they do in their community. And to our listeners, you can submit a question at any time, radio@preppedandpolished.com. We always appreciate hearing from you. Evan and David, thank you so much for joining us on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration. How are you guys today?
I'm great. This is Evan. Dave, are you there?
Yeah, I'm great too. Thank you very much for having us on the show.
Thank you so much. Great
Awesome.
to be with you.
Sure. So I met the two of you briefly at the Independent Educational Consultant Association meeting, the IECA in Boston, and since then have followed your career and Facebook page. You guys have an extremely successful admission consulting practice, but seem to always find time to have fun and travel. Has it always been that way?
I would say yes. I give it a big old whopping yes, but we often have the privilege and are blessed to be able to combine our travel with our work on all levels, actually. So.
No, it's great to be able to, go to Beijing and see a university and meet colleagues and at the same time see the Great Wall.
Right. Pretty awesome. So we're blessed in that way, and I think we've always both coming back from journalism backgrounds, which is how I met David originally. Was writing for him when he was the editor-in-chief of a magazine called Pause about AIDS and HIV. It gave us, we've always, for work we get to travel, so we're really lucky.
Wow. So, guys, a lot of our listeners are teens. So I'm wondering what you guys were like as teens.
You really want me to answer that?
No, you don't want to answer that, Evan.
All right. So I guess,
let me answer.
It's a PG-13 show.
Yeah, he will interrupt me quickly, but let me tell you, Evan was one of those kids who was incredibly smart, and he always did his homework, but he also, let's just say, didn't always do exactly what he was supposed to do.
I was a mean girl, sure. Okay. I was a mean girl who always got his work done. So back in our era, I'm not going to tell you when, that meant you had psychological problems. But I would say that I was, it was a different era. So if I'm going to be really honest, let's just say I got all of the things that most people get out of the way in college. I got them out in high school. By the time I got to college, when guys were like, and gals were like, let's go drink beers at the frat, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever.
I, on the other hand, was like, in high school, I was the good kid. I was the kid that followed all the rules and, didn't stand out too much and kept my head down and just worked. And I was like the sort of goofy, abstract kid that, always, that would have loved an essay like University of Chicago's essay about like solve for X, right? Like that would have gotten me really excited.
Yeah, whereas I would have just been like, what?
But what it does is it gives us really great insight into every type of kid we have and we work with. Evan, you can't get anything past Evan.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to come to me and you're a player, I'm like, okay, I don't think so. Because whatever you think you've done, I did it twice and probably 3 times.
And you can't run, you can't fool me.
You can't hide.
Right.
So the students, and whether you're a private student of Forster Thomas's or whether you're one of our students at Essay Busters, from the hood or whatever, I don't care what hood you're from, there's no getting away, we get you to dig down deep and we just have one request, whoever you are, that you really tell the truth about what's going on with you.
Yeah,
That's
definitely.
what we want people to do.
Who were some of your major influences for you growing up?
Patti Smith, the singer.
Really?
Kidding.
How was she an influence? Oh,
I'm not kidding.
Like how did she influence you?
She was out of control. I remember watching her on TV, and she's first of all brilliant poet, brilliant performer, just outstanding. And she always held to like who she said she was who she was, and then you either liked it or you didn't like it. But she really stuck to her guns, and also made a huge difference and made it possible for so many people. She was a trailblazer in being that weird, different, gay. I can't recall if she's gay or not or whatever. I think she is, but I hope I didn't just out Patti Smith. But she isn't out by now. Too bad.
I don't think she minds.
I don't think she cares, but I think that was a really huge influence on for me, and people like I'm going to stick with her. I'm just going to go with her.
And mine could not be more different. This is just going to peg me so wrongly, but rightly. But one of my influences growing up was the character C-3PO in Star Wars.
Wow.
For some
scary stuff.
I know,
right?
right? I somehow identified with C-3PO. Like and he loved languages and he always knew the right thing to do and always was really politic and interpreted his friend and but everybody kind of like always looked at him like you're kind of on your own planet, if I can use a Star Wars reference. And I don't know, like I always was like, what, I want to be that guy. I want to be the guy who's always useful and who always knows everything that's going on. And, I've always got the information and that's how I'm going to make my mark is through what I know.
And always makes really bad jokes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you two both have journalism backgrounds, and I was wondering, how were you able to use? Well, first of all, that's how you guys met, right?
Well, that's how we met, but I want to just skip back a little bit. I would say that it's my, you mentioned my Bachelor of Science. What I guess is not on there is that I have a minor in dance. I was a ballet and African dancer, and I also danced professionally with Joel Hall. And I would have to say that dancing and choreographing and choreography is the one thing that and film, learning how to write visually, is what taught me how to be able to express who I am through the written word. Because dance is like, ballet is like an essay, it has ebbs and flows and, and you feel it, when you write something, if you're not feeling it viscerally, physically, it's just not that good. You know when to write, when to have a sentence be one word or 75. You just know. And, that's why we're always talking about read your work out loud, slowly, like I'm speaking right now. That's the best way to edit yourself.
That's great.
Anyway. a little tangential, but
No, that's really good, and it kind of answers. Well, I was going to ask you how you're able to use your background to better serve your students. So you addressed that.
Well, I was
already.
also, I want David to also be able to answer that. That won't happen unless he just shuts me up. But
oh, I will.
I was also the college editor for 17 magazine. I don't know if you're too young to remember that magazine, but it's I had the rare opportunity of being able to speak to admissions officers all over the country and the planet and ask them questions, as a journalist, not just from 17, but from other areas of my life in graduate school. And I wrote so many articles about, about getting into grad school or law school or business school. And so I got to peek behind the curtain and to ask what they were looking for and what was really going on. What do admissions officers really want? And I got to write about it, and they were open to that process or open to telling me. And what I can tell you that is everlasting, never changes. All admissions officers say the same thing. We want to talk about who you really are. Stop trying to impress me.
Right.
And that's similar to that is my biggest influence from journalism. And as a journalist, you have to balance a tightrope, and that on one side of that line is your own voice. What is your voice? Who are you? How do you express yourself? What do you have to say, and what's your point of view? But on the other side of that tightrope is what magazine or newspaper or are you actually writing for?
Who's your audience, in other words?
Well, and what's the style of that magazine? Newsweek has a very different style from 17, which has a very different style from Vanity Fair or Scientific American. So you have to be able to,
my favorite magazine.
Or People, right? But you have to be able to balance your voice and put it into the context of who you're talking to and what people expect when they pick up the magazine. And so when we're doing admissions work and we're talking to kids, I'm able, we're able to, as journalists, know how to see a kid's authentic voice, but also make sure that it's appropriate for the audience, and that that can even go into individual school supplements. The way you might express yourself to MIT versus Sarah Lawrence versus Wheaton College, can be very different. It's still all you. It's authentically you, but it's just different little aspects of your personality.
I agree with that. I want to add to that about the voice. Voice. What we call. David's nickname is Uncle David, and I'm Auntie Evan.
Yeah.
Everyone calls us that. But what Uncle David's talking about is, so incredibly personal and important. So, when you get a parent or your English teacher or your, aunt, your grandma, whomever, and they start to take all those wonderful jagged edges that you write in your essay,
those little things that make you you.
And it's what makes you you, right? And then they smooth it out for you. Big mistake.
Right.
Like big mistake. And
we call that essays by committee. And when you start reading your essay, as journalists, we're used to working with an editor. Like Evan as a writer worked with an editor. I as an editor worked with a writer, and it's a 2-person team. It's not a 12-person team. And when you start showing that piece of writing to 18 different people, everybody's got 18 different points of view. Everybody's got 18 different things that bother them. So by the time you've made everyone happy, you've got a good essay that everyone likes, but you don't have an essay that anybody thinks is awesome.
That's such a great way to say it, because you want to make everyone happy. Conversely, everyone you're giving the essay to loves you. So they will lovingly flatten you out.
Yeah.
They will do it lovingly.
So are you guys saying that a 3-person team with the mom and you guys is not a good team?
Nope, it's not.
Oh, not at all.
Mom, go out of the room. Stay away. I hate to say this. Moms don't love this when they hear this. But here's what happens. Here's what we do. I'll be really blunt about it. Here's what we do. We do it with our nonprofit, and we do it with our for-profit. Here's the way it works. You work, like if you're in our nonprofit, you work with your mentor. Auntie Evan doesn't even get to read it, period, the end. And it comes to its end, and then it goes, maybe it gets edited. Like, say I work with a student, and then Uncle David does a little editing, But Mom, here's what happens. Here's what we say. Mom, you can you get, after we have the word, Smith, personal statement, final, Mom, you go ahead and screw it up all you want. But when we say it's final, it's done.
Well, but really what that means is, like, our basic rule, if you want to work with us, is we have a relationship with the kid, and the kid, our responsibility is to our student, and it's the student's essay and the student's voice. And Mom, if you want to apply to college, go for it, and you can work with me. But this is the kid's voice and his experience, and you're going to want to, don't helicopter on that kid.
I'll tell you something last week real quickly.
Mm-hmm.
I have a wonderful candidate. Let's call him John.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? He's amazing, and this is on a graduate level. He's applying. He's just a top candidate. He's a very bright guy. Not the best writer, not the worst writer, but very bright. And he wrote a beautiful, beautiful essay. And then he knew our advice, no essays by committee, and he gave it to his sister before Uncle David got it.
Who was a graduate of his top choice school.
Yeah, was a graduate of his top choice school. So let's pretend it was Stanford. Okay? So because she was a graduate, he gave it to her, and she said to him, John, I hate it. And he went into an abysmal, like just a spiral, right? Okay. Then she even gave her reasons why she hated it. And her reasons were like, basically, I like pink, you use this word, I like this word, it's pink, like it's subjective, like pink, or I like pink, you like green.
Right. Okay? It wasn't like, this doesn't make sense. It was more like, your word bothered me.
Yeah, right. So here's the thing, right? And then she had a couple of good suggestions, but mostly what happened to John is he went bananas.
Right.
And he got worried. And he kind of freaked out, and it was not. And it was
disruptive to the process.
Sure.
Right, but here's the thing: she applied to Stanford one time,
and she also applied like 10 years ago.
Yeah, she also applied 10 years ago.
Right.
Right. So like, this is why it's so amazing. Like this, Alexis. We're like, if you're going to hire an expert, in fact, you can look at JobTalkDaily.com. and look at my blog this week, shut the you-know-what up and listen to the expert. So, there's a reason why I get into a taxi in New York City and do not tell him which way to get to Grand Central, because he's the expert. Not me, not my mother, not anybody, him.
Right.
So that's something we hold very closely to.
One thing that comes to my mind is that you guys have an uncanny ability to draw out a student's natural voice. How do you translate that to your team? I'm sure it's challenging, but you guys are
challenging. You know what we do? It's really crazy. So, how, I'm sure a lot of companies, they hire ex-admissions officers and blah, blah, blah. And by the way, I have really close friendships with admissions officers. What they're really great at is picking a really great student. However, helping somebody reach their voice, dig down deep and find the right school, that's a whole other talent.
I'd like to compare that to being a chef versus being a food critic. Admissions officers are food critics. They know they can taste a dish, and they know what's in it. They know if it was cooked right. They know how balanced it is. They know if it's got the acid levels mixed with the sweetness and all this. But that doesn't mean they can actually cook.
Right.
On the other hand, a chef can produce an amazing meal, but he might be a terrible food critic. Auntie Evan is saying is that what we do is hire people who are chefs. We don't hire food critics. We hire writers. We don't hire.
So what I was going to say is that our coaches that work with us, it's so difficult. Like, we go through an iteration process of hiring that's so intense. First, you have to.
We call it an audition.
It's like an audition.
Perfect.
And we go from
New York City.
We get 400, resumes and cover letters at a shot. If we even put an inch of this up on a Craigslist, a Monster, whatever, and we whittle it down to like 12 people, and then they come in and they spend a day with us, hours. And then the first half of the day, pretty much of the 12, 4 quit at lunch. They leave. They don't do this. And by the end of the day, we know who the 2 or 3 people are that we're going to be left with. And then we test run them, and there usually is one person that season who really gets what we're about. And a lot of the day is spent just talking to pair sharing and talking to people and,
and getting them to tell each other's stories. And we have to make them tell by
structuring a story.
Yeah.
Right.
And then that person apprentices with us.
Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then they apprentice, and they don't always make it. And, it's never a bad thing. It's just, And as far as, are they like Auntie Evan? Are they like Uncle David?
Mm-hmm.
No. Here's the one thing we teach them. And it's a real important thing. It's called the bartering. I call it bartering. Like you share with your candidate something about you, and they'll share something back. And here's the deal. You share in the way that you share. So our coaches are not, they're not mimics of Auntie Evan. They're not trying to be Uncle David. Tom is Tom. Kirsten is Kirsten. She does it in her way. And there's just something about them that's you can't put your finger on it. It's just they are who they are, but what they all have in common. And every month when we get together for our company-wide meeting, it's just amazing to see how in love, this is what they have in common. They are in love. It's the rule of Forster Thomas. Fall in love with your candidate.
That's awesome. What services does Forster Thomas provide, and also what don't you guys do?
Well, we are full-service educational and career consulting, which means that we provide college and grad school, undergrad school. That means I'm going to go ahead and say we're the number one MBA consultants, and the number one med school. Uncle David, nobody can, I get to say this because he's also my husband. Nobody can stand up against Uncle Dave when it comes to medical school consulting, but we do all the professional schools. So film school, medical school, law school, all of that. And of course, college. And
what full service means is that, we take you from candidacy building. We love to work with, we don't always, but we love to work with people from early in the process.
We do a lot of leadership training.
To help you build your candidacy. And then, of course, helping you select your schools and what to do, campus tours. We do interview skills, of course, all the essay coaching, and,
all that you would expect. Here's what we don't do. Ready?
Mm-hmm.
We don't pretend that we're therapeutic consultants. We don't pretend that we're your therapist.
Mm-hmm.
We do not. We have and are able to put our finger on and can get really phenomenal test prep coaches, just like Prep did Polished. Okay.
Oh, well, thank you.
We don't. You're very welcome, but it's true. But we don't play that game where we take on something we don't know, and then when we don't know something, we know who to call.
If you're a shy young adult, or not necessarily like this type A alpha dog guy trying to get into a business school, can you still help that kid get into a good business school?
David?
Absolutely. What you have to do, I call this Kirk and Spock syndrome, all right?
Kirk, oh my God, these movies you watch.
I know, right? I'm totally
sci-fi.
But Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock, here's some things they have in common. They're both great leaders. They both are good decision makers. They're both good in a crisis. They're both really intelligent. So it sounds like they're the same guy, right? No, they achieve the same results, but they do it in really different ways. So what top business schools want to know, they don't need you to be a super outgoing Mr. Captain Kirk, charmer type. What they need to know is that you understand how you create results. Are you able to, do you create results? They don't care so much about your style. So there are some people who are like Mr. Spock, are incredibly persuasive and powerful, but they're metrics driven.
Right. So here's the thing, right? So let's say you're the quiet, shy guy. You might be that what you call shy, that quiet power is incredibly necessary when it comes to building. Right? Remember what we said about our admissions officers that we know who are really expert? I want to make sure I say this. They're incredibly expert at going, boom, I need in my class because you're that quiet, powerful guy who's going to facilitate everything.
Gotcha.
I need because you're so darn charming and really can lubricate the whole situation when things are tough. There's all kinds of reasons. And so
chili doesn't have just one ingredient, and neither does an MBA class.
Gotcha. Okay. So that's kind of a misconception, thinking that you have to be a certain type to.
Oh, and the worst thing is I leave you with this. I mean, on the MBA question, I leave you with this thought. Okay. One of our best candidates ever, with a capital hashtag, all right, was a woman who her entire background was teaching people how to jump out of airplanes. Ask me what that has to do with the typical, what people think business school is about. Oh, yeah, by the way, she went to MIT. Sloan. Okay, so it's not, people have such a misunderstanding. I really encourage, I'm going to slip this plug in, I encourage people to read the MBA Reality Check, the book on Amazon. Get it on Amazon or download it. But the MBA Reality Check is going to transform the way you understand everything you apply to, not just an MBA, but everything. And frankly, if I may be so bold, the way you take on your life. Yeah. Because when I sign the book, I always say the same thing: time to be a leader.
Nice.
What type of leader you are, there's different types of leaders. And the worst thing you can do is try to be what you think they want. You need to just be you and know what your superpower is.
And this goes for, what your superpower is. And this goes for every kind of school you're applying to, or every job you're going for, or every life you want to live.
Is there a student where he comes into your office, not cocky or anything, but he kind of comes in thinking he knows what he has to do to get into B school, and you're just basically like, no, you're not a good candidate for us?
I want to take that one first. Every now and then that happens, but it doesn't happen nearly as much as you think it does, because people, by the time somebody's 26 and they've been working at high levels in business, they get what an expert is, and they get what a consultant is.
He's saying that they're usually for the most part, that category of person is, and listen up, high school students, that kind of person is incredibly coachable by this point. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, they're coachable. You have a coach on an athletic team, and that coach is yelling at you and making you rise to the occasion, and you listen to that coach. And one thing about these students that I really enjoy working with them is they do come to us for expertise. They play to win. The people who aren't coachable, the ones who are cocky and think they know the process, are never the students. It's the parents. Especially if the high school kid will walk in, he's humble, he might be confident, but he's humble, he wants your help, and then the next thing you know, the dad spends the entire 45-minute appointment talking and telling us what the kid's good at, and the kid's looking at him like, do you even know who I am? And the parents, so that's why we try to keep parents out of the process.
I want to be clear about something.
Your kid, you're still thinking of your kid.
But I want to clarify something, and I'm going to interrupt you. It's not that I don't speak to parents all the time, because I do.
Of course.
Right.
That conversation is separate. You think I don't call up so-and-so's mother and go, tell me some secrets about your kid that he's not remembering, right? Tell me some stuff. Give me some stuff. Give me some some stories. I want stories, right?
Yeah, parents are an important part of this process, but they're not always, they don't always have to be in the room or on the call with the kid.
Right. Or they're great when it comes to choosing schools, because guess what? Guess who's going to be coming? It's a very familial experience going to college. It's 4 years of your family going to, Vanderbilt or Elon or, Northwestern.
You guys wrote the MBA Reality Check, and check it out. Will there be more books coming out in the future?
Yeah. There's a book coming out.
Okay.
That's being worked on right now.
Right now as we speak.
Nice.
So
I don't tease that.
What?
We'll just tease it.
This is a really great book, and it's going to be about it's about changing the planet. It's about having the life you want and the career you want, and it being up to you. Because what I always say: the joke's on everyone, or the joke's on you. Doesn't matter where you go to school. Not going to change a thing if you don't bring it. In life.
Yeah.
But I do want to say, I do need to plug one thing, and that's Essay Busters. for anybody who's listening, for you, for everyone. Essay Busters is our nonprofit.
Essaybusters.org.
Yeah, Essay Busters, ESSAYBUSTERS, like Ghostbusters, but essaybusters.org. We are out to change the planet by creating, making sure everyone has an opportunity to go to college. That's what Essay Busters does, and you can go on essaybusters/ I think it's
Essaybusters.org.
Yeah.
Oh, no, or go ahead.
I think it's essaybusters/ Causebox.
No, it's essaybusters.causebox.com. Essaybusters.causebox.com and make a donation because it's really
okay. That's a donation page.
Yeah. I mean, just go to essaybusters.org and you'll figure out how to make a donation. Here's the reason. Because if all boats rise, so if you're anyone, $1, $5, $10, $100, $1,000, $1 million, whatever you got, reach into your pocket and help kids. What Essay Busters does is help underserved populations of students get into college. And here's the really cool part about the way it works. All of our candidates, or I'll say 80% of our candidates, are mentors at Essay Busters. How cool is that? And they go in and they help.
Evan, I think you started it in 2008, Essay Busters, right?
Yeah.
Now, when you had a lot on your plate, how did this amazing program come about, and where have you taken it?
Well, I was at the time for 13 years, from I think about 2000 something like that, 2000 to 2013, or I was the college advisor for an organization called Chess in the Schools in New York City. And while I was there one day, an admissions officer, or actually at that point an ex-admissions officer from Dartmouth, Sarah Blanton, who later worked for Forster Thomas, but Sarah Blanton was, I guess you would call it a
grade director.
She was a grade director or dean of a very, 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 very struggling charter school in East Williamsburg, basically Bushwick, Brooklyn. And she came to a small college fair that I was doing for these kids at Chess in the Schools, and we just clicked. And she asked me if I would come to, deepest Bushwick and give a speech on writing the, killer essay. And so I did. And after I did it, while I was leaving, I was like, okay, now that's all what y'all need to do, blah, 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 blah. And this one kid stood up and said, "You coming back?" And when he said, "Are you coming back?" I was like, I have no mechanism for coming back in my mind. I didn't know what to do. Mm-hmm. So what I did was I got Roberto Pineda-Sanchez, who's our office lead, and now the head of Essay Busters. He's the head administrator for Essay Busters. And, I got Roberto and David, Uncle David, and Katie Kennedy, who also works for us, and a bunch of people, and it's a couple of mentors. And I said, could you just come with me for a day and help these kids with their essays? So we came back. And then that led to us realizing if I could just create little mini Auntie Evans, so to speak. We started to train people, and we had candidates for college and graduate school, of course, who wanted to make a difference. And they thought, I want to put something on my resume so I can apply to Harvard Business School. And then when they showed up, they were like, no, wait a minute, this is so powerful, and the privilege is all ours, like that we get to work with these kids. And so we began to recruit, and they began to recruit, and they created recruiting of their friends and people. And so we are not huge right now, but we're in, we've worked in over 12 schools, and we just finished up in Yonkers, New York at one school, and now we're going to be in the fall over at Renaissance Charter High School in Harlem, East Harlem, and also at Urban Assemblies Academy in Manhattan. And
it's really cool. And watching these kids who are not used to having people pay so much one-on-one attention to them, all of a sudden get all the attention of this person, this really smart person who cares about them, and help them apply to college. It's just an amazing feeling.
And, from when I saw you at the IECA, I think I met you, Evan, quickly at a dinner the day before at Tia's on the waterfront. And the next day you're Jones in a suit picking up an award for Essay Busters.
Oh, yeah.
So it's an award-winning program.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that was really wonderful of IECA, and also great organization that gives back constantly. And I think that if, you could do one thing on the planet, whatever you're up to, even going to college next year or whatever, like, consider the possibility of making a difference for somebody less fortunate than you, because it's just an amazing way to get to success, whatever the success is that you want.
That's amazing. Tell us about your blog and podcast, Job Talk Daily, and what has been some of the public reaction you get from the show.
Okay, you can hear the laughter.
Shock and horror.
Shock, awe, horror, anger.
And information.
Happiness.
And a lot of information. Job Talk Daily is about where work and life collide, and it's about how you may think that you have a life.
Come on the show.
Yeah, you must come on the show. But who you are on the job is different from who you are at home. But you know what? It's the same guy. Just like your wife was yelling at you.
Wait a minute. That's not true. That ain't true at all. Who you are at work is who you are at home. Yeah, exactly. And you said different.
Right.
Oh, sorry.
No, who you are at work is who you are at home. And when your girlfriend is yelling at you for not taking out the trash, it's the same thing as your boss yelling at you for not turning in your report. And when you can clean one part of your life up, you'll clean your life up, you'll clean your job up. And just work and life collide in so many ways. And that's really what our show's about. And we talk about how to be powerful, how to be leaders, how to get promoted, how to make more money. And we do it just like the old married couple we are, bickering the whole time.
Yeah, I mean, tune in tomorrow where we'll be talking about, how your life is like, it's like the Middle East and Gaza. Okay?
And there's a war going on in your office.
There's a war going on in your office.
And you're not de-arming or whatever, yeah.
So, it's just, it's everything and about work and life and how they collide. I mean, the other day, Roberto, who is Latino, and he was in a local restaurant, and I'll give this away about tomorrow. He was in a local restaurant getting a falafel or whatever, and behind the counter he heard the manager screaming at the workers and
in Spanish
about a customer.
Oh,
right?
Oh.
And Roberto, about a customer, assuming that nobody spoke Spanish. And, Roberto just turned around and he's like, really, Poppy? He just read him the riot act. So we have a little job talk tip. Be careful what you say in any language out loud. Right. There might be somebody who speaks, Russian, okay? Standing right there. And that's the kind of thing we talk about. So it's a very fun but really informative show. And it also, to bring it around to college, college is also life, and, grad school is also life. So how you operate now and the games you play and the games you don't play and the power you take on will happen at college or grad school.
Absolutely. And you were an Asian studies major, David, so I'm sure that your travels to Japan, no one could get anything by you.
No. Right. I love working with Asian clients, too, because it's a very different culture and a different world and the things, but they're applying in an American system. And so we, really have to understand who they are and where they're coming from so that we can bring out those relevant and important parts of their personality that they think are inappropriate because it would be inappropriate in their job, but it's completely appropriate in America. A Japanese person would never talk about his family in an essay.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
A recent Japanese client of ours, a current Japanese client of ours, he and his wife just had their second baby, and he couldn't see how that was a leadership story, right? Until we had to map that, we had to break them down.
Guys, the bridge from teenage years to young adulthood is exciting, but it's confusing, and we have teen listeners. To any teen who might be listening to us today, what piece of advice would you have for him?
You want to take that, or should I do?
Well, to be honest, here's my big piece of advice. It gets better.
Yeah.
Great.
It gets better. It does get better. And I would add to that by saying, do something for someone else. It might, like you don't have to leave America and go to Botswana to help somebody. Your grandmother needs you to shop for her. Your neighbor needs you to clean the leaves.
Don't forget your own backyard.
Yeah, Dorothy. Take your heels. They're right there. So many people think they have to go so far away, and do something so undone,
right,
so extraordinary that we forget that, how can people who care about evil and social injustice, what about a needing friend? Oh, yeah, by the way, all those words were a quote from a song, right, in the play called Hair. Yeah.
Not written by Patti Smith?
No. But my point is just simple. It's just amazing to see how people will get on to a whole, especially teens. You know how you do. You get into a whole, you want to, it's great. Look, hey, no doubt, I'm gay. I want you to like the cause of gay marriage and everything else. However, that said, I still want you to help your neighbor rake the lawn. She needs your help. She's old. She's Auntie Evan's age. She needs your help.
Yeah, I love that you want to save the planet, but saving the planet starts at home.
Right. Great advice. So how can we find you guys? Work with you, order your books, hear your podcasts. Please plug yourself.
Well, you can see us there. Multiple websites, so grab a pen. You can find us at forsterthomas.com, FORSTERTHOMAS. ForsterThomas.com, that's our company, or essaybusters.org if you're interested in becoming a volunteer, donating, or bringing us into your school. And then there's jobtalkdaily.com, and that's where you will find our website that supports our show and get all kinds of great information. You can also find us on YouTube. Just for any of those, Forster Thomas, Job Talk Daily, or Essay Busters. And then you can find us on Twitter at Auntie Evan Says, Uncle David Says, or MBA Reality Check.
And I just want to say to all the teens out there, give us a call at Job Talk, jobtalkdaily.com. I'm not sure if it's okay. You might have to get your mom.
888-454-7738.
No, that's wrong. 888-454-3378.
3378.
But I don't know if you got to get your mom's permission, I guess. Well, I don't know, but whatever.
Sign a waiver.
What I can tell you is we are, we're up for doing a show about how your parents are ruining your professional career possibilities. So there you have it.
So sign up. Well, thank you, Evan and David. I personally want to thank you for trailblazing. I think you guys lead the way and set good examples for the rest of us by giving back to the community, just being yourselves, both in work and outside of it. And I appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. You keep going and doing your great work.
Well, this wraps up our show today with the dynamic educational admissions duo of Evan Forster and David Thomas. To learn more about the amazing work Forster and Thomas does for young adults and teens, then visit their website. It's forsterthomas.com and buy their MBA reality check book, the MBArealitycheck.com, and listen to their podcast and hear what happens to Roberto tomorrow on their podcast, on their informative blog, jobtalkdaily.com. And finally, support the nonprofit organization Essay Busters. It's essaybusters.org. Thank you for joining us on Prepped and Polished Education and Inspiration.